So what is our conclusion, Olga?
That's confusing question, but I thought the last sentence. But
Well, yes, Damon will be forced to choose between his professional and his family responsibilities, right? Because we say thus because, well, thus does introduce is a conclusion indicator word, but because actually introduces a premise. So, but because, for, and since are premise indicator words. But why we're not wrong with that since is because we have the double comma going on here, right? So thus is actually kind of referring to our main conclusion. And they're just giving us that double comma to, throw us off with our reading. But we're saying like, thus, because of his procrastination, Damon will be forced to choose between his professional and family responsibilities. Once we find the conclusion, what we want to do then is, in our own words, explain how we were able to draw this conclusion. So go ahead and take like 30 seconds to either think or type up, what does the author do to get there, to show us that this is the conclusion. And then once you have your prediction, go ahead and pick an answer. Okay. I'm going to go over this question a little bit quickly because we're going to bring the rest of the group back. However, once we bring everybody back and I explain like next steps, I'm going to stay on for like 20 more minutes and go over like another question or two. So if you feel a little bit rushed, I am going to rush a little bit and then I'll make it up in a little bit. So for this one, a lot of people were picking A, B, or E, I believe, or A, B, and E. So when we want to do this, we want to say like, okay, the argument gets to this conclusion by. So do we provide evidence that one event will occur in order to establish that an alternative event cannot occur? Is that the goal of it, to say that, hey, we provide evidence that this one event will happen to prove that this alternative event cannot happen?
I was stuck between A and E, not just chose A.
No. But look, you picked them in the other group. This was the most common wrong answer choice too. And you're like, because it's close, right? We're like, hey, if this one, but our goal is not to say, hey, this one thing isn't going to happen to show, or this one thing is going to happen to show that this other thing will not. Our goal is just to say like, hey, you can only do one of these two things, right? And so E says, demonstrating that two situations cannot both occur by showing that something, what does necessary mean?
Necessary, it's like, doesn't it have to happen? Like you need it to happen?
Yes, that's what I was saying. Necessary starts with any, so it's something that's needed. So whenever you say that, don't be afraid to switch that out. So by showing that something needed for one of those situations is incompatible with something needed for the other situation. So demonstrating that two situations are the professional, like writing the paper and going to the tap dance recital, right? So we demonstrate that these two things cannot both happen by showing that something needed for one of them. So what is the something needed? What is that referring to?
I was thinking like his presence, attention.
Yeah, time. That's what I said. You're not wrong by saying presence. I just said time. We get to this conclusion that Damon will be forced to choose between his professional and his family responsibilities by showing that the two situations cannot both happen, because something that's needed for one of them, his time needed for one of them, won't allow for him to have enough time for the other situation. Do we see how that happens? Is this super hard still for everybody? Or are we kind of grasping the concept, but it's okay if we're at the point where, you know what, I understand the goal,